Hey Jackie, Auntie, Jackie, you ready? When the clouds roll.
The power of grace and remembering patience in our growth and also in others' journey, it is so important. And you might ask why. It's important because it emphasizes the need for understanding both of ourselves and of those around us. And I'm going to give you some vital points in this area. Number one, personal healing, it requires time. Growth and healing, there aren't linear processes. We often expect quick fixes, quick results, but lasting change, it takes time. And by remembering to be patient with ourselves, we allow room for mistakes and setbacks, which are essential for parts of the journey. Number two, building self compassion. By extending grace to ourselves, it helps to cultivate self compassion. Instead of us being overly critical, we begin to learn to accept that process and progress is gradual. This self compassion, it reduces stress and it also encourages a healthier mindset during personal growth. Three, empathy for others. When we begin to recognize our own imperfections, it becomes easier to show and remember this in others. It becomes easier for us to begin to show empathy and patience towards other one, remembering that everyone is on their own journey. And by remembering this, we can even offer them the same grace that we hope to receive by fostering a deeper and more meaningful connection. And number four, breaking the cycle of judgment. In a world where it's easy to judge, showing grace is a powerful way to break that cycle. It will encourage a more compassionate approach to relationships, and it helps to create a supportive environment where people can grow without fear of harsh criticism. So, go with me in this discussion on the power of grace and remembering patience in our growth and also in others' journey. I have a question for you today. How come, it takes us sometimes a lot of time to grow and develop and mature and, overcome different things that we've experienced in life. When we talk about self-development, self-discovery, showing up our best self and all of those amazing things, sometimes we forget the journey and the process that it takes us to be able to get to where we are today. Sometimes we forget, and sometimes it can cause us to be a little bit insensitive to others, or sometimes we can forget the amount of time that it took us and that we don't always extend that grace and mercy towards other. Could it be that we often forget the time and the effort that it takes us to heal or develop into our true selves? Maybe because that journey, whatever that journey that you're on, it can be both gradual and sometimes messy. What if life has a way of distracting us with new challenges, routines, and setbacks? And that makes it easy for us to lose sight of how much work we already done, how much work we already put in or still need to do. What if we may become impatient both with ourselves and with others? What if, when we expect quick fixes, or when the process of change isn't as visible as we would like it? As I begin to sit in all of this, I begin to wonder, could it be these four things? Could it be number one, projection of our own struggles? We've had, if we're hard on ourselves, sometimes that we're hard on others. And we expect that same thing out of other people. So that causes us sometimes to lack compassion. When it's hard for us to accept our imperfections and things of that nature within ourselves, sometimes it can be difficult for us to accept imperfections in others. Number two, could it be emotional distance. Now when we're in the valley of our situation, when we're in pain and in the process of healing, sometimes it's hard for us to have empathy and understanding towards others because the pain and everything that we're experiencing within ourselves. Number three, could it be fear of vulnerability? Now we know that when it comes to being empathy and expressing empathy and compassion towards others, sometimes it does cause for us to be vulnerable, for us to acknowledge and admit our own struggles. Sometimes it causes us to admit that it took us time. Because sometimes it causes us to admit that sometimes we were okay with our change and our process, and sometimes we fell back. So sometimes it causes us to see the things that worked as well as the things that didn't work. And sometimes that makes it difficult for us to be able to accept others, where they are. And the fourth one would be expectation versus reality. And sometimes we have an expectation because we've healed, we're where we want to be, and sometimes we expect that same thing out of others that we're engaging with, except, or should I say, not accepting the reality of where they really are. And because we've already made it to the other side, and we're forgetting about the time and the work and the effort and all it took for us to get to the other side, and we expect that person to get there overnight. So again, this question really, really began to bother me because I begin to think about, as I'm healing, as I'm developing, as I'm changing, as I'm, working on showing up and being the best version of myself. One of the things that I don't want to do is lose that and become insensitive to others who are also on that same journey and may not have accomplished or where I may be. So could it be that it would be a good thing for us to think about sometimes when we're engaging and when we're dealing with each other, not be so quick to judge or to think the worst or begin to give others grace and mercy. We wanted that when we were on our journey. So don't you think it would be important for us to do the same thing and give the same thing to others when they're on their journey? So I'm going to go back to some of those four things that you could think about that could be possibly be the reason why we can be insensitive towards others after we've already reached the other side and we're dealing with someone who's kind of still in the process. Could it be expectation versus reality? Could it be projection of our own struggles? Could it be our emotional distance? We're so into the pain of, where we are, it inhibits us from being sensitive to the other person. Could it also be fear of vulnerability? Being able to, again, acknowledge and have us kind of look at the struggles that we were in and the process and the time, and even being vulnerable that sometimes we got it right, sometimes we didn't get it right, sometimes we took 2 steps forward and other times we took 4 steps back. So again, that's something to think about. So when we talk about living our lives bold, fulfilled, and free, I believe that that's one of the things that will help us to be able to do that because we want to be able to add value to others. We want to be able to encourage and be supportive to others. But if I'm using these 4 categories, if I'm operating in those 4 categories, that could really inhibit me from really being effective in the lives of people that we want to touch. So until next time, continue to live your life bold, fulfilled, and free. Take care.